may look like a harmless enough garden plant, but Japanese knotweed is striking terror into the hearts of the capital's homeowners. With roots capable of ripping through brickwork and even concrete, it's cutting some property values in half and sending mortgage lenders running scared too. Well, getting rid of this alien invader, well, that can be a costly business, as Mark Jordan discovered.
Our neighbourhoods are being invaded.
We were told we had to have our house torn down. You don't expect that when you've just bought a brand new home.
A destructive force deep below your home.
I was in floods of tears. That's our money gone.
Be very afraid if Japanese knotweed is growing in your garden.
It can push into foundations, it can push into drainage pipes blocking drains. How strong is it? It can push through tarmac and concrete. How deep can it go? 3 meters deep quite easily, as it does in Japan. And how dormant? There are reports of it being longer than 20 years if it's buried deep enough and resurges.
This plant is strong enough to undermine foundations. Matt and Susie had no idea their £300,000 house was built on top of knotweed.
I wanted a brand new build and no problems. When we first spotted it coming up through the garden, it looked like asparagus tips. Never seen anything before, and so I had to get some advice in.
Worst moment was finding it grown in the house. That was just shocking.
Forcing its way up through the floor, yet their home survey hadn't even spotted it outside, and insurers now refuse to pay out.
The house cost us in excess of £300,000, and if we didn't treat the problem, the house was being told that it would be a value of £160,000. The first contractor said that literally we had to bring the house, take the house down, knock the house down, and rebuild the house. It was cheaper to do that than actually to remove the knotweed from what they were saying.
So how has Japanese knotweed made such an audacious attack across Britain? The story begins over 150 years ago, when Victorian plant collectors gathered just one sample of a tough but seemingly beautiful plant on a volcanic range in Nagasaki, Japan.
It comes from the volcanic fumaroles in Japan, where it's continually inundated with hideous gases and soil and moisture, so it's an incredibly strong plant. It's well equipped.
It was an undiscovered country, so it was a place where amazing new exotic things came from.
Around 1850, just one plant was shipped to Kew Gardens. Cuttings were sold on. The RHS stores the innocent ads.
There's a picture of it, the Great Japan Knotweed. They are fine plants with deep soils and certainly can take care of themselves.
The invasion had begun.
Well, it has soon escaped the garden through natural means, parts of bits of rhizome spreading. It doesn't spread by seed, so everything we see in Britain in the main is one big female clone from one plant, and it's been called the largest female on Earth.
So when you dig it up and you chop it up and you dump it, a piece could be as small as this?
Much smaller than that. Smaller than the size of a pea will still go.
Roads, rivers, railways, fly tippers and gardeners have spread the mother plant's brood. I'm on patrol with a knotweed exterminator. So how's it got into your garden? Because there's a wall there, we're in a terraced road. How did it get in?
I've no idea.
Claire's one of thousands now having to call in the professionals.
There is no instant fix. Anybody that tells you they can kill Japanese knotweed instantly is lying. It is one tough mother.
This firm offers 5-year guaranteed eradication plans. Plants are regularly injected with poison. Treatments can cost up to £25,000.
You would ignore knotweed at your peril. Certainly it will flag up if you try and sell your property. If Japanese knotweed grows from your property into an adjacent property, which, given it can grow up to 7 metres in all directions per season, if it grows into an adjacent property, you could be sued for damages under private nuisance. We have a lot of cowboy contractors coming into the industry, and somebody spent £10,000, £12,000, £15,000 on a contractor and actually had the situation made worse. We've gone in and quoted £20,000, £25,000 to resolve a situation. We've had a good look around the rest of the garden. We've had cases where people who've come in have killed and destroyed entire gardens trying to target what they considered to be Japanese knotweed, and it wasn't even Japanese knotweed in the first place. Killed everything.
The plant's also taking its toll on home buyers.
We're living out of boxes now as a consequence of knotweed.
A cautious first-time buyer, Natalie paid for a full survey on her new dream home, but it failed to spot the knotweed. She discovered it herself.
It was only a few days before exchange that the bank was made aware of the knotweed in the garden, and that's when they decided that the mortgage was off.
With all the furniture for the new home arriving, they found a second lender.
The knotweed was at the end of the garden, about 90 feet away from the house, but in just a few weeks it advanced roughly 60 feet to a point where it was only about 30 feet away from the house.
That was now too close for the second lender, and they too withdrew.
I wouldn't try to buy a property that has Japanese knotweed. It's doomed to fail, basically.
Do you feel that it's a bit of a mess at the moment?
I don't think it's a mess. I think it's an evolving situation. It's gained so much awareness that it can make a property unpopular among potential buyers. A lender has to consider all those things.
Worried they'll never be able to sell, these owners are having 20 tonnes of knotweed-infested garden dug up and removed. It'll cost £5,000. It's a meticulous process.
If you cut this off, a tiny piece like that, the size of my fingernail, if we leave that on site, that will regrow.
And that's just one garden. The Canal and River Trust has had to spend £500,000 helping keep knotweed from thousands of neighbouring homes.
Just here there is a pathway and there's a housing development, and in order to protect this from the roots of knotweed, which can penetrate through concrete and tarmac, we need this dead zone.
They have to continually poison this 2-metre front line. There's no money for the rest.
Right behind me we have got a virtually impenetrable woodland of knotweed. At this location we really can't win the war against Japanese knotweed, but we are fighting a continuous battle.
On this bank, knotweed has been poisoned, cut, cleared and burnt, but it's already back. Homes wrecked, neighbour turned against neighbour, banks running scared, and fortune spent on an alien that has no natural predator. You know what happens in the movies? They call the scientists.
There's 186 species feeding on the plant in Japan, and our job was to try and find the things that only attack Japanese knotweed and don't pose a threat to the rest of the environment. We ended up with a thing called the psyllid. The psyllid sucks the sap out of the plant.
The bioscientists at Kabi had found a bug that only eats knotweed. So these are the critters in action, so tell me about these.
Yeah, this is healthy knotweed, just had the psyllids put in. This is a month later, starting to show some action, and then here we are 2 months later with real damage showing.
Wow, so they're really suffering.
Yes, these plants won't grow from this point.
The psyllids have been released in 8 secret UK test sites. How long will it be before knotweed is falling like this?
We normally say between 5 and 10 years to get to know whether you're going to get a success, and we're nowhere near that yet. But we're still very hopeful. A few good summers and we could have a really good run of it.
As those psyllids muster for battle, Susie and Matt fired the cowboys that wanted to bulldoze their home. So this is the front line, really? Yeah. 4 years and £30,000 worse off. They now have an eradication plan that's working.
The battle goes on, but I think we'll win the war.
So now you know what knotweed looks like. The leaves will die for winter, but they will be back.